Hello and thanks for watching my video. In this video we're going to show how we can use UCS integration with Microsoft PowerShell using the Microsoft PowerTool PowerShell library. Also using the data on tap PowerShell library with a NetApp array that I have in my environment, and combining with that the SAN fabric zoning script that I showed in one of my other videos to quickly deploy bare metal servers. So here's the scenario. I've got a Cisco UCS domain here, and we can see a list of servers that are deployed. And we'll go ahead and just call our new server test1, just as an example. And we're going to go ahead and build ourselves a new test1 server. So that server does not exist, which means, you know, there's a physical server there, but I haven't deployed a personality on it, which assigns it the 10 NICs that it's going to have, that assign it its HBAs. There's nothing that's been done for BIOS policies, boot policies, any of the management policies. None of that's been done yet. Also, if we go over and look at, for example, PuTTY on my SAN fabric, if I do something like a show a device database, we see that we don't have a test1 server in either of my SAN fabrics yet. We also see if we were to do our zones, show zone set active, we see that I've got the existing servers in here, but I do not see this, this new test1 server that we're going to build. We'll also finish out the proving that everything's at default. Let's go refresh here, and we see that I have no initiator group in my NetApp. And if we go over to my LUNs and we refresh the screen here, we notice that we do not have any actual LUN built. So what I do have, though, sitting inside my NetApp is I do have this gold LUN. This is a sysprepped Windows 2012 R2 server that's just sitting there. And so I'm going to go over to my PowerShell, and in PowerShell I'm going to go ahead and pull up my test1 demo script. And what this is going to do is it's going to go in and it's going to call a series of scripts. So the first one that's going to go in is it's going to create a new UCS service profile from template. So it's going to take my Hyper-V template and create a new server. Once that's done, it's actually going to go over to the NetApp, and it's going to take that gold LUN and it's going to clone it. And it's going to give it a name that's going to match the server name that we decided to give this server. And it's going to build an initiator group. It's going to grab the WWPN information from UCS, use that to build the initiator group, and then associate it to that cloned LUN. And then once that gets done, we're going to go over and we're going to zone our SAN fabric using the information from the WWPNs and the name of the server to actually log into my two different SAN fabrics that I have and actually do that zoning. On top of that, just since this is a demonstration, I'm going to run that script again, and that script is going to do its output. Instead of writing it directly into the equipment, it's going to send it to a text file, so we can go take a look at what the output would look like. And then finally, I'm going to have it invoke the UCS KVM, and we can watch that server boot. And while that's going on, we're going to show the second part of doing a bare metal deployment, which is, I mentioned earlier that this is going to have 10 NICs on this server, and those NICs are going to be used for various purposes. And it's a lot easier if we know which NIC is NIC, so you know which one is which. So we're going to go ahead and go through and do a PowerShell script, which is going to automatically rename all the NICs based on the names of the NICs that we gave it in UCS. So let's quickly go over here, go to my LAN tab, and go down and look at my various NICs. And we see all of my NICs here, and those NICs are all being presented to this new server that's being built. And I, of course, know all the MAC addresses since UCS associated those, and with that, I can do the NIC rename very quickly. All right, so enough with figuring out how this demo is going to play out for you. Let's go ahead and actually run this. So I'm going to stretch this up so it's a little easier to see what's going on, and I'm going to just say run. So that quickly, it's already going into UCS. It built the service profile. It's already gone in and built the LUN. It's going in now and it's doing the SAN fabric on the A side. As we can see here, that's 10.0.1.2. This takes just a moment. It's completed, but now it's getting ready to do the next one. Now it's doing the SAN fabric B zoning, and that will just take it one more minute. Once that's done, as I said, it'll run again, just write the information out to a text file. Good news is that goes extremely quick. And then it's going to launch the UCS KVM. So here's the UCS KVM being launched. That took 55.58 seconds to completely deploy a bare metal server. At this point, we'll go ahead and watch the beginning of this server boot using the integrated KVM from UCS. We won't necessarily maybe watch the whole server go through its entire boot process. We'll watch the important things, and then we'll go take a look at a few capabilities. But what I want you to see here is when it gets to the point of finding its boot LUNs, that you'll see that it actually connects to the NetApp correctly. And as such, it proves out the point that SAN fabric zoning was completed correctly, the LUN was cloned, the initiator group was built, and everything was tied to this new UCS service profile. Once that's said, we'll go take a look at a couple things in our various pieces of equipment to see that that's there, and then we'll go ahead and do our NIC rename. Okay, we're getting close here where we should be able to see the system go ahead and query for its boot LUN. Okay, so now we see that it has pulled up the portion of the boot where it has found the A fabric NetApp boot LUN. Now it's looking on the B fabric. It has found it on the B fabric, so all of our zoning must be correct, along with our LUN and initiator groups. And now it's finishing up its power on self test, and it will start the boot process. We'll wait for the Windows logo to come up, and then we'll go query some of the configuration in our devices. And there we go, Windows is booting. So while that's going on, I'm going to go ahead and switch back over to my UCS Manager. And from the UCS Manager, if we go back to our Servers tab, we notice now that we have a Test1 server that has been deployed. That Test1 server happens to have, from an HBA perspective, 01AA02 and BB02 as the WWPNs. If I come over here and go into my SAN Fabric A and do that show device database, we'll see that an alias has now been created for test1 on the A fabric, and that's got our 01AA02. And if we go over here and look at the B fabric, we see that that is showing up on our B fabric. If we do a show zone set active and we query through this, we should see down at the bottom of our configuration that we have added our two zones for our test server on the A fabric, which happen to be multi-hop FCOE in my environment. And then on the B fabric, if I do a show zone set active, we will see 4 zone sets getting created. 1, 2, 3, and 4. My B fabric happens to be running 4 gig fiber channel connections. Now let's go ahead and go over to the NetApp. Let's do the refresh on our screen again. And if we do that refresh, we see our boot LUN test1_C has been built. If we go to our initiator groups and do a refresh of the screen, we now see that our test1 server initiator group has been built, and it contains those members, the 01AA04 and 011 BB04. So with that said, we should be at the point where this server has already done its first boot. We see that. It found all the devices. It's doing its second boot. For expedience for the video, then let's go ahead and pull up another server that's in my environment, and we'll do a refresh here on its NICs, and let's talk about the NIC renames. So here I've got 10 NICs. And again, UCS knows all the MAC addresses, and so my normal process of renaming NICs might be going in here, pulling up the status information, pulling up details, and say looking at the IP address. Bummer, this NIC actually didn't get an IP address. Maybe it's used for some other purpose. But if we look here, maybe I could get the MAC address and go look something up to find out how I should rename that NIC. Let's just randomly grab some other NIC, pull the details up here. So yeah, this NIC actually got an IP address on it, and I know that's my lab NIC. So I could then simply come in here and do something like rename and give this NIC, the name lab. But rather than doing that and having to do that times a lot of servers, we can go back to our PowerTool module for PowerShell and show how we could do this as an automated function. So if we go in here and say, let's run our rename script, let's go ahead and execute it. It's going to go ahead and log into the system. And what it's going to do, it's going to look at that server. It's going to find its UID. From that, it's going to go find it in UCS. And now it's going to go ahead and run that script. And as you can see, it's already completed. So if we go back to this server and do a refresh of the screen, what we see here is that quickly it went in and did its NIC renames. So it just takes a matter of seconds, and now all the NIC names match up. Remember when I showed you the lab NIC? That was the 1001 network. So let's pull up the status on that. Let's go to details, and there's that 1001, proving that I didn't just throw random names on these NICs. I'm actually using that information from UCS to properly rename the NICs. So again, thank you for watching my demo, and come back for some more soon.